Had to find every single bank in Puerto Rico and start creating it. They would start providing me with their monthly closings, and we would create our own database of comparable data that then we would sell to appraisers and brokers. So the government inefficiency actually led to us creating a new business model for comparable data because the system in government didn't work. There are so many opportunities that we have to create because government systems are not working. But if government systems are working, there are so many other opportunities that I could even be creating even further that it brought me into wanting to actually come into government and serve, so I could provide the tools for entrepreneurs to create, thousands of the type of businesses that I created.
I was still with Coach America. We started talking to them about, well, how do you construct a civic innovation strategy? And so we worked together on that. We actually helped them appoint a chief information technology officer, help think about the strategy and the structure for that. And then eventually, earlier this year, I went back down there to meet with them and see how things were going. And the mayor said something really interesting to me, because we were talking about some of the other models, what worked in New York, what worked in Chicago. And he said, Avi, if we can make it work here in LA, with all of its challenges, with its size, with all of the eccentricities that are in that huge, big American city, we can make it work anywhere.
Who are the consumers of these data data sets, and how do we create that virtuous cycle between producer and consumer?
Yeah.
And I direct the Mayor's Office of New Urban Mechanics in the wonderful city of Philadelphia, which we can also call the innovation capital of the world, because I just said that.
Our office was created when Mayor Lee first came to office. He called San Francisco the innovation capital of the world. Also. The office was really created to champion new ideas and tools and approaches within government. And I'm pretty
That's the example. This is not supporting launcher events. This is not an app that actually works.
That's a broken phone. You decided that the broken phone was better than the cheap phone.
And this morning, it was great to hear cheers because there were so many great things that happened this morning. There was a hackathon that happened this morning, and there were 3 apps that actually went live this morning, immediately redeployed into other cities. Totally awesome.
A huge shout out to Microsoft for all that they've done for us. Thank you so much.
Brian is a firefighter and EMT for the city of Long Beach. He saves lives for a living. He really appreciates the responsibility he has, but he often gets sent to an address that makes him sigh. This address is a super utilizer, or an address that disproportionately uses emergency services. Brian knows that when he arrives, he'll see a similar scene to what he saw earlier that week, or even earlier that day, one that often seems preventable. 52% of EMS calls, it's over half, came from just 10% of the addresses. Being able to help that 10% has a huge impact, both financially on the city and in the lives of people going to the hospital. So we asked the question, what can be done here? It was while Brian has to go to the emergency room, take the patient, and be ready for the next call as soon as possible, it was clear to us there are other people in the city and other approaches that could be taken to help solve the underlying problems at these addresses.
To help find those solutions, we built Address IQ. Address IQ is a web application that serves as a spark for action by highlighting the highest utilizing addresses to city staff and supporting their communication about the actions that they can take there.
Did you know that 5 to 20% of all government workers in IT can retire probably in the next 5 to 10 years? And we don't have a whole wave of new people coming in. No wave of new blood. They're rooted in the past. And by the way, that's not a bad thing. That's what they were taught to do. That's what they were educated to do.
Technology can actually help lower the barriers and make it easier for people to start the conversation with their neighbors. And we wanted to bring back the sense of community to the neighborhood.
Sort of everything that contributed to, why this moment for the GovTech Fund? Was it technology? Was it something else that was happening in the marketplace?
Yeah, so those are some of the characteristics of the companies, but they reflect the broader trends, right? And the broader trends that, because there have been companies in the government space, in the startup space for a while, right? If you go back to the 90s, we've all heard the stories of eGov and GovWorks and some of these things. I think there's been a gradual, so you have those companies in the 90s. I think they had a tough time. Like, there were some really interesting technologies, but their cost structures were such that they couldn't really compete, because they walk in and say, yeah, well, this is awesome, but it's $10 million. Well, that's the same as the legacy vendor, so we'll just go with that. And then if you fast forward to the sort of mid-2000s, you start to see some of the cost structures improving, and you start to see the emergence of platform companies, a lot of companies that were like doing multiple things, they're addressing multiple areas within the infrastructure of government. And now we're at a point, I think, in the last 3 or 4 years where you're starting to see companies, the cost structures, the cloud has brought that down so significantly, the cost of starting companies, that you're able to see companies now that can do point solutions and build very significant businesses off of that one point solution and do it very, very well.
In fact, over 50% of the residents in Detroit live in a house where they owe a past due balance to the water department there.
Who it is that you're trying to mobilize, you also can identify who you're not reaching. This is something that we were thinking a lot about in my fair city, Washington, D.C., earlier this year. We had an opportunity to organize the DC Tech community, whatever that is, to participate in a massive cultural festival. I mean, this was a huge opportunity for us to get outside of ourselves, to stop having our own existential crisis about who we were and who we were reaching and who we weren't reaching, and actually design a program that could bring together a lot of different people.
I've been thinking of it in my head as sort of the Let's Get Real portion of the program, which is, and I especially love, Denise, your talk didn't really mention technology all that much, except to say actually people prefer to listen to the radio or get it through spoken word. So I really would like to explore in this conversation what the limits are of the work that we're doing and the challenges that we really face, and how we identify where digital technology is actually a leverage point. It can't be the solution all the time. How do we discover where it works and where it doesn't?
And engaged communities are the bedrock of democracy. And we also believe, and I get so excited when I come to this conference, and I've seen it grow from, as David said the first day, 100 people, to now 900 people or so, the level of inspiration in the room. Right? And the one thing that's really exciting about everyone in this room is you're all here because you want to change something. And at Knight Foundation, we want to enable that change.
It was a very short commute. I only had to work for 5 minutes from my house to my office. And I didn't realize how fortunate I was, because now that I live in Seattle, this is my commute. It's 10 times longer, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. But that's how I have to do. And it turns out that most people in the US, that's their commute. You know, about 100 hours a year we spend commuting. As soon as I get on the bus, I'm one of these people, take out my phone, start checking Facebook, etc. Not really focusing on the journey, more focusing on the destination or my friends online.
The Code for America Summit! Yes. That is also both it's a where, a what, and a when, kind of, sort of, yes.
Woo. Hello. Oh, this is my screen. This is a train of thought, so just follow me here. Who knows what street this is? Shout it out. Haight Street. I don't know if anybody said that. I can't hear anybody right now, but this is Haight Street. Just look at where all those people are, just taking up all that space, just making it really active. If you looked it up on Google Street Maps, this is what it looks like. All of that energy just sort of condensed down to a single line. Right? I think the way we draw maps is from lines. It's been with us for a very, very long time. We look at paths from like a desired line from point A to point B. This gets to like the interstate highway system. We think of maps as nothing more than how you get from this point to this point. We don't really think about what it's like to be in the middle of a street by itself. So this is sort of the issue. We sort of think of the street network as a series of pipes, a series of tubes like the internet. Here's what's doing it really well, video games. This is a screenshot from Deus Ex. This is a fictional future city of Detroit. If you walk over to this like wayfinding site that's right over here, and you said, hey game, I want you to take a closer look at that, you take it to the in-game map. Here's what it looks like. The buildings are these yellow blocks, and the streets are represented as these areas, right? It represents where you are in this physical volume of space. And that's part of what a game does. Who else does it well? Urban designers have been doing this for a very, very long time. This is a map of Rome, a really famous map of Rome from 1748. The architect I can't even say it, Annoli map, Google it later. It's showing the relationship between the buildings and the space that is not buildings, so you understand what it's like.
Hey, as always, thanks for watching, and if you'd like to be among the very first to know when I publish a new episode of Frank's World TV, be sure to click the subscribe button down here to your left. Also, if you want to do me a really big favor, be sure to click the like button for this video. And as always, you're welcome to make a comment too. Thanks.